Hi everyone, it's Sally Ann. I've spoken about my experience of Canada, and now I decided to look at the real crux of it, which is the healing. What I've noticed on my travels most profoundly is that Canada is not different to the UK, to Scotland, to Ireland, to America, to Greece, to Corfu, all the places that I seem to have been. There's this recognition that it's not different, it's all the same. And then I ask myself, why am I here? Why am I here? Why have I travelled like 24 hours across the globe? Why have I done that? If it's all the same, why am I here? And really, Canada was just a backdrop for the healing of my own mind. And I can see where it's been quite profound. It started on the plane. Lots of people were talking about deep vein thrombosis and insistently doing their exercises and taking pills and potions and all kinds of things, and I just ignored it. I'm like, I'm not doing that because I really don't believe it. And but what happened to me at the end of the flight was I'd taken my boots off for the flight, which was a 9-hour flight, and I tried to get my boots on at the end of the flight, and I couldn't get them on, and my legs and my feet and my ankles had just swollen, and it was like doubled in size. I literally could not get my boots on, and everyone was laughing, and then I goes crazy trying to do these exercises to get rid of the so I could get my boots on, but I really couldn't, and it was quite even painful to try and do it. And so that was the first thing in and around the body and sickness. And then I was kind of living in the now and not knowing what was going to happen, and I ended up, people say, getting hijacked, and I ended up at this meeting. I never knew these people, who they were or what even the meeting was about, but it was a Diksha meeting, and there were about 14 people in this room, and I was so focused on watching my mind and healing what appeared to be separation, because this group was called the Oneness Group, and it really promoted separation, and false idols and worshipping of false gods and bodily identity, and there was so much stuff flushing into my awareness, special relationships, inferiority, superiority, it was all going on. So I was completely engrossed in that, the healing of that. Yet I just overlooked the other part of it, which was all 14 people in the group, my young people, were complaining of sickness and disease and how ill they were, and they were comparing medication and who had the worst pain. And the only person in the room that didn't seem to have an illness started making up one. She joined in with them and was creating all these illnesses and pains. And I knew in that moment something was going on, because all the way there to this meeting, people in the car were complaining of sickness. When I arrived, all the people were apparently sick, and so it was continual looking at this sickness, and I knew it was being shown to me for a reason. But I'd got so much healing stuff going on with the other stuff, I just completely overlooked it. So then when I arrived at my friend's, her dog was sick. The sickness was coming out in her dog. Well, both the dogs actually ended up sick, and So I was seeing this sickness in these dogs. Still didn't put why. I knew there was a reason, but I wasn't really going inward and digging until I arrived back home in the UK and found my 8-year-old daughter was severely sick, and I thought, oh, this is the ego bullshit, trying to drag me into the story, trying to make the body real, I'm not buying this shit, it's illusion, which was right. A bit of a ghosting, really. So what I really needed to do was go within, really, and see that I still had belief in my mind that I was a body, and that I could get sick and die, and that I could be in danger anywhere in the world. So it was really just allowing that belief in my own mind to be recognized, to allow it to surface, and to have awareness that I still had belief somewhere in my mind in sickness, and in bodily identity, and in death, and in separation. So it really was pointing to that. So yeah, finally gets it when I get home. It's like an hammer blow over the head. And it's really my own creation. Nothing comes to me unbidden by myself, and so I really had to look at that, why I was creating that. So yeah, that was one aspect of it. The other aspect I noticed in Canada was I was really, really being shown that everyone was innocent. Everyone was innocent, and it was seen on such a profound, deep level, because I was witnessing lots of drama around me, and lots of ego fighting between two persons, which seemingly I seemed to be in the middle as an observer. But the entire time I could see clearly, despite what seemed to be going on the screen, the bickering and the fighting, and she did that and he said that, and how awful, and take sides and join with me on this. It was like I couldn't just... It was like all I could see was the truth, the innocence underneath it, the complete innocence. And I was aware that this was just an ego dance. And it was really strong. I think I've carried that with me, to really, for the first time, see the innocence under everything, and to not get sucked in to the story, and what it appears to be, it is not. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, in the midst of these guys arguing, I could literally see one character was playing the victim, very strongly playing the victim, and I knew that what I was seeing in this person was an aspect of my own mind, and that I still held somewhere in my mind a belief in victimhood, even though I believed I've forgiven it and healed it on many levels and many layers. It's still there, and I had to accept that it was still there, otherwise I wouldn't be seeing it in someone else. And this just reinforced, really, this person's innocence, because really I'd created this scenario, and now I was looking at it, and she'd done nothing wrong. Underneath was the truth and purity and innocence, and what she was doing was really serving me, and I could really see how my brother was my saviour, and it was so profound. So I had to really, let go of this idea in my mind that I can be a victim of the world and a victim of anything, and that something is being done to me. I had to completely let go of that and give it over. And then the other character in the drama was showing me sadness and a fear of loneliness, and also this insane desire to control things, to have control. And really what I was looking at was another aspect of my mind which still believed that I was a body, a separate body in a world of separation, and that I could experience sadness and loneliness and fear, and there was still that aspect in my mind, because this guy was showing it me, and I couldn't be seeing it if it wasn't held in my mind. And so it was a complete letting go of that. Yet also what that showed me was there was still a belief in special relationship, and that special relationship was my salvation. And it's like special relationship can only be the answer and the solution to ease my pain. And so even had to let go of that idea of special relationship. And so the entire trip to Canada was just a backdrop for the healing of my mind. And it was continuous while I was there. Continuous looking at myself and where I'm at. And then obviously I was aware of the homeless situation when I arrived back home, because I was prompted to give up my house, and then there was this coming up of flushing up that I could know something about the situation, there's still like a little element of control. Really, I can't know anything, and I was like almost saying the spirits guided me, or the spirits prompted me. And so I must know, but really I don't know. And it was all part of the trigger the ego to suck me back in. And I recognised that really this is what I was doing. Then when I arrived home, this issue of this prompt to give up the house was really flushing up some deeper, darker stuff, and I really had to start looking at that, because while I'm saying I trust in God and that everything's fine, I do trust in God and everything is fine, yet I need to look really underneath that, and what the real fear is, and it was almost like, Samuel, could you close my door, please? Yeah, it was almost like I believed that I was a body that needed a house and a home, and that I actually had a fear of really owning my own home, and a fear of financial responsibility that went with the home, and a deep fear of not being able to house these children, and a fear that I was responsible for these children, and a fear that I could fail them, and a fear that I could hurt them and be responsible for their pain, and a fear of having them taken away from me, a continual nest of fears really around this giving up of this house. A fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment, a fear of humiliation, a fear of judgment, a fear of lack, a fear of loss and sacrifice, and the list just went on and on and on. So this was in about owning my house, and so the fear of owning a house and then the fear of not having a house. Well, it was just really the same thing. It was all fear. So in not having a house, there'd be like a fear that I've been unsuccessful, and a fear of humiliation, and a fear of judgment, and a fear of not being taken care of, a fear of not being supported, a fear of not being comfortable, a fear of being exposed to the extremities of winter, a fear of death, a fear of starvation, a fear of lack, a fear of hunger, a fear of not being loved. So the entire scenario of owning my own house and not owning a house, and the fears are all the same. It's just one big fear, and that's really had to flush up into my mind. And that really goes much deeper than saying that I trust God. It's actually look at what this entire backdrop is showing me. So yeah, Canada has, has really been good for healing parts of my mind that were still still holding these beliefs. And there was a lot of beliefs around relationship coming up, and also love, and I still had this belief that love could hurt me, and a deeper belief, if I loved freely, then I was guilty of something. And this flushed up 2 or 3 times. The guy had given me a hug, and there was an intense connection, but in the intense connection I suddenly felt this guilt that I couldn't love freely, and then there was an idea that this was a person, a separate person from me, and this separate person belonged exclusively to someone else, and if I dared to love freely, then I was guilty of betrayal. So when this one embrace came in, I was convinced I was guilty. I could feel it in my mind rising, and I could literally hear footsteps in the corridor, and I swore in my mind that this was the guy who was cuddling me. It was his wife. She was coming down the corridor, and she was about to burst in the room and expose my guilt. And this is what was coming up, and I was like, whoa, where is this shit coming from? And like, I'm guilty for loving freely, and that love can be owned and isolated and exclusive to one person, to one thing, and that I can be guilty for loving freely. It was just crazy. And actually, another time, there was a different person who gave me an embrace, and it was the same thing again. It was like an intense feeling that I was guilty of something. I mean, it was just an embrace, it was just a hug, it was nothing else. There's nothing else going on. So yet still there was this intense feeling of guilt, and as this guy hugged me, in my mind I had a vision that his girlfriend had her nose pressed up against the window outside and was looking at us. It was as if I was being watched. So yeah, intense levels of guilt were being flushed up. Like, I had a belief, an idea that I could be guilty of loving, and loving is guilt. And like, it was bizarre. It was absolutely bizarre, but yeah, that was flushed up also. And there was a lots of other flushing that ran much deeper than that. And it was to do with a childhood sexual abuse. But in my mind, yeah, there was still an idea around that. Because at every time somebody tried to come closer than an arm's length, I began to feel extremely uncomfortable. I had this sick feeling in my gut that started to rise, and complete uncomfortableness, and so much so that I, like, at one point told this guy, "You're making me feel uncomfortable. Don't come any closer than my arm's width. Don't come near me. I don't like it." So this was going on for a while, and then I decided, to allow this person closer, and I was kind of accepting it. While it was just like stroking my back, massaging my back, I was kind of accepting that, and it was okay. But yet still, this was an idea in my mind. Why is he doing this? What does he want from me? He wants something from me. He wants reciprocation, and there was a really uncomfortableness about it, that love demanded a price. Love demanded something in return, and love was conditional, and that I had to do something, and that was flushing into my mind. And what made me laugh was this guy didn't get anywhere with me on that score, and so I'd gone back over to my cabin, and later on he came over, and he said, "Oh, I'm not a big wine drinker. I never have been. I don't really like the stuff. Although I've partaken in it recently just to get rid of the idea that I don't like it." But this guy comes over and he said, "Oh, I'm just thinking I'm going to go out and buy a couple of bottles of wine for you and I to drink tonight." And I'm like, oh my God. In my mind, I was laughing in my mind, because in the past, when men haven't gotten anywhere with me, they always turn up with bottles of wine, try and get me drunk, and try and get me to change my mind. And so this is really funny. I didn't hide it at all, and but as soon as I recognised it in my mind, this guy changed his mind. He's like, "Oh, I've decided I'm not going to get wine. We're just going to have tea." And again, I was laughing, and I did share with him later that what had come into my mind around it. And so, yeah, there was lots of healing going on there. But the deepest thing was, yeah, there's this like association in my mind that love was really between bodies, and that because of the childhood abuse thing, that love could be painful to me, because it was between bodies, and not only painful but terrorizing. And so actually the uncomfortable feeling that I was getting, and the fear and the pushing away, was really about that association in my mind about the idea that could be so. So that was also flushed up as well. But there was also lots of good stuff going on in Canada. Like the entire trip itself was given and was completely looked after. Complete miracle upon miracle upon miracle, the entire journey. Yet really, in the midst of the miracle and the joy and the love was all this healing going on underneath. And that's really, really what it was about. It's about the healing of my mind and the opportunities that would arise for me to heal still what was in my mind. And today, there's a real understanding of what was given, and just a deep gratitude. And the love of what was given, and also it gets to reinforce this idea that everyone is innocent, because what's playing out is what I've created, for the healing of my mind, and my brothers are just, showing me what I've created, and underneath it there's just the purity and innocence, and nobody's guilty, and it's just been really beautiful to see that. Yes, Molly. Yes, you can get dressed now, baby. Oh, I've got to tell everybody Molly's a lot better. Instant healing. She's just said instant healing. It was like, when I sorted it out in my mind, it was like she had an instantaneous healing because she had this norovirus. It appeared this norovirus, and where for 10 days, 20 days, she's been vomiting violently, not being able to hold fluids or food down. There's the constant diarrhea, the constant pain in her stomach, the tiredness and the weariness, and being upset because she was hungry but not being able to eat. So all this was going on yet. And she'd been up at 2 a.m. throwing up, and I got up and cleaned it all, and then I realised I really needed to get serious about looking within and seeing what was going on and why all this sickness stuff was coming up for me. And once I did that and released it, it was instantaneous. Like Molly just said, it was healing in an instant because she'd had the vomiting experience at 2 a.m. and I'd cleaned that up and put her to bed and then done the healing. It was around about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and she was deeply asleep in bed, and the minute I did the release, she sat bolt upright in her sleep and she said, "I'm better now, I can go to school." And then she lay down and continued sleeping. And I laughed at that because that was like symbolic of an instant healing. And actually, when she did wake up at 8 a.m, she was in this miraculous state of recovery. She was so well and so perky that she wanted to go to school, although she was not allowed because there's a rule that when they've had this virus they're not allowed in for 48 hours after the last episode, so she wasn't allowed in. But I mean, not only could I see that she was improved, I knew because she was chewing my ear off again and talk, and I thought, oh yeah, Molly's back. Molly's back with us. And so yeah, that's been a real healing. And Stuart just reinforced that I can never know really what anything's for or what it means, or I can never know anything, period. And I can always have an idea in my mind what something's going to look like, but it never looks like that which I think. It never does. And it completely surprises me every time. And so it's also an aspect of giving up the belief that I can know something, or I can know what it means, or know what it's for. Complete giving up of everything. Yeah. Time for celebration.
Just in time.
It's time for celebration, eh, Moles?
Yeah. I just said just in time because look.
Yeah, well, this clock normally clicks off at 30 minutes, and it's not clicking off at all, and we've gone past the 30-minute mark, so maybe I've been given a premium package without me even realising I applied for one, and that is the miracle. On that note, I'll click off and get my little darling Molly ready for school.
School, I was it.
School. Bye, everyone.